Autopilot deaktiviert.
Jäger in der Luft.
Behalte derzeitigen Kurs bei. Greifen Gegner an. Sind unter Beschuss. Wir stehen unter Beschuss. Kehren zurück. Sind unter Beschuss.
Flugzeugträger versenkt.
Hey, how's it going, captains? Admirals Rory here, and welcome aboard for another World of Warships video on my channel. In today's video, I'm going to take a look at the Tier 8 premium German aircraft carrier, the Graf Zeppelin. This is an aircraft carrier that I've been waiting for a very long time. It feels like Christmas never came. The Graf Zeppelin is an interesting carrier to speak of because she is the carrier that only lived in the premium shop for roughly 2 to 3 days. The story behind her is that Wargaming thought it'd be a great idea to rush the incomplete version of the Graf Zeppelin. How incomplete? More incomplete than the real Graf Zeppelin. And as a result, the community attacked Wargaming for their failure because they choose to do a cash grab during the Gamescom event in Germany. The marketing team thought it'd be a perfect idea, just a perfect, everything synced together with a German aircraft carrier, the first non-Japanese American aircraft carrier in the premium shop to go along with the Gamescom event in Germany. And the people who bought the Graf Zeppelin, they did get a refund from Wargaming if they choose to. The people who kept the Graf Zeppelin get a very super special camouflage that I wish I had. And for me, I was pretty close to purchasing the Graf Zeppelin, but I choose not to because it was immoral to spend $65 in a carrier or any general ship that you can buy from the premium shop that for a fact that Wargaming, what they choose to do was immoral or it was a very poor decision. So it's clear that it was a business decision. I respect business decision. This is a game, they gotta make money, but it was not the right way to do it. So putting that aside, let's talk about the Graf Zeppelin. I want to say right away that what you have heard about the Graf Zeppelin, because the Graf Zeppelin had a very interesting levels of power. At one point she was the crappiest ship to play to a point where she's the most powerful ship to play. They nerfed her, they changed her again, back and forth. She had a very rough testing phase, and even in the CV rework, she's just way out of the ballpark. As a matter of fact, during the CV rework, when the CVs are being tweaked, especially the premium carriers, the Graf Zeppelin was the strongest carrier to play at Tier 8. Yeah, it went from the worst carrier of all time to the strongest carrier of all time, aside from the Tier 10 carriers, because those guys have a different story. So, putting that in perspective, if you've been hearing about the Graf Zeppelin being very strong, she has been nerfed. And as a result, she doesn't perform as great as she was before. But she has been nerfed to a point where the level of her strength is right in the range that I expect her to be as a ship compared to the other tier 8 carriers that I've played. Right now, I think she's my most favorite aircraft carrier to play, and she does have very unique features that you can't get from the other carriers, and I'm going to talk about them. So the first thing I want to talk about are the planes. You don't get the Stukas. That's one of the biggest reasons why people wanted to get the Graf Zeppelin. But these planes, these TA-15-2C, I don't have any aviation knowledge of the Germans. I'm sure people out there know more about this than me. I'm mainly on the American and Japanese plane side, but these planes still do have the Stuka sirens, so you can kind of roleplay as a Stuka, but they aren't Stukas. Is that a deal breaker for me? Definitely not, because one of the biggest reasons why I bought the Graf Zeppelin is because how beautiful she looks. She is a large aircraft carrier. So the torpedo bombers and the dive bombers. The dive bombers are equipped with AP bombs, and you can only drop 2 of them, which is underwhelming when you compare it to something like the Enterprise. But these bombs do a ton of damage. I think the Enterprise can only do a maximum of roughly, well, right here, 5,900 damage. Shokaku AP bombs can only do 6,100, and the Graf Zeppelin does 7,000. These are very big AP bombs, and they can penetrate the citadel of the Yamato, the Montana, if you drop at the maximum height. I did not know that the penetration of AP bombs are, they penetrate deeper if you drop at the maximum height, which is also the least accurate point to drop the bombs. But someone told me in the comment section that if you want more penetration with the AP bombs, you have to drop it at the maximum height. If you drop it at the last second, which is the most precise point to drop the AP bombs, they're not going to penetrate battleships. And of course, the logic goes the other way around when it comes to cruisers. You don't want to drop it at the maximum height, or the AP bombs will overpen the cruiser. You want to drop it at the last second. Not the absolute last second, because they will bounce, but right when you play enough of the AP bombs, you will figure it out. And of course, I tried using these AP bombs against destroyers, and all they do is just incapacitate them. They don't even do damage. I don't recall of them doing any damage at all. They just incapacitate after incapacitation. So these planes are really fast. I don't know the exact speed of a jet, but these things feel like jets. 260 knots maximum speed, and they cruise at 186 knots on average. So the torpedo bombers and the dive bombers, for whatever reason, cruise way faster than the attack aircraft, or as I would call them, the fighters with rockets, or just in general fighters. Yeah, these fighters are super slow, seriously slow. I don't know why the torpedo bombers and the bombers are faster than these fighters. Maybe because these fighters are outdated compared to these two, but the selling point are the speed. And to give you a perspective, I would consider Lexington pretty fast, and they only cruise around 128 knots. Shokaku, a little bit faster than Lexington, but these guys are just way too slow compared to the Graf Zeppelin. And compared to the British, it is no comparison because how fast they are. The British are the slowest, I believe. Well, they're in the same ballpark, but they're fairly slow. So the Graf Zeppelin, super fast planes, at the cost of the survivability of these planes. I do have the bomber health pool upgraded, and also have the captain skill for expert survivability, so the health on these planes are a little bit higher, but these are very similar to like the torpedo bomber health pool of the Kaga, and the Kaga planes get shredded pretty easily. The difference between Graf Zeppelin and Kaga is that Kaga has a massive, absolutely massive squadron, while the Graf Zeppelin doesn't. So yeah, you really trade everything for the speed. And is the speed worth it? And to me, believe it or not, this is the most sustainable plane that you can use at tier 8. Everyone else, they're gonna get shredded in tier 10 matchmaking, and it's because of the speed. And I'll show you guys with a gameplay of why it works that way. So torpedo bombers, they only drop 3 bombs. I think that these torpedo bombers are probably the worst out of all the carriers I've played in terms of performance. They're slow. You drop 3 of them, so I guess it's better than Shokaku. Except that what makes them the worst, aside from being slow, 35 knots, is that they take a while to actually convert. They take a while to focus. And if you compare it to the Enterprise and Lexington, these guys having the same number of torpedoes, they do a way better job than the Graf Zeppelin. These planes, the torpedo bomber, well, these planes in general, for being fast, another problem with these planes is that the handling characteristics, due to the speed, they are the worst. I mean, it's day and night compared to the Royal Navy aircraft carriers. The Royal Navy aircraft carriers turn on a dime. These planes can't turn that well. How bad is it? Well, torpedo bombers, you don't want to use them against destroyers. I have no luck with the torpedo bombers against destroyers. AP bombs against destroyers doesn't make any sense. Like I said, they just incapacitate. You want to use the attack aircraft or the fighters to deal with destroyers. The fighter rockets, you don't have that many of them, like the Enterprise. So they're not great against destroyers, but if you keep trying, these rockets do a lot of damage. 4,450 maximum in terms of damage. So I would say if you get 8 good runs, that should be enough to sink a typical high tier destroyer. But don't expect them to do the best compared to like the Americans, because the Americans, I feel like the Americans are really the best choice when it comes to the rockets. Against carriers, they do have a pretty nice penetration. Against cruisers also 40 millimeters, so they are pretty nice, but look how flimsy they are. 1250, right? Compared to like Enterprise health pool of 1420, Lexington's 1420. Yeah, it's just not so great. I mean, the Implacable is the best when it comes to the health pool, but it has a really crappy penetration compared to the Graf Zeppelin. So fighters, you just want to use them against cruisers, finish some targets off, or mainly against destroyers. That is your #1 defense against destroyers. Don't use your torpedo bombers. They just can't follow up with a second attack quick enough, because the destroyer will be angled right away after your first attack when you turn around due to the poor handling characteristic. So those are how the planes are. They're just fast, they're lightly armored, but they also the most sustainable planes, which doesn't make sense because you think that planes that have the best armor, the best health pool, will be the one that sustains the best. And I'll show you guys, like I said, in the gameplay of how to play the Graf Zeppelin. Now, as a ship, she is, well, as I expect at tier 8, she does have a 32 knots top speed. Any ship that's below 30 knots, which is probably the Kaiga, is where it kind of hurts the aircraft carrier, because once you're caught, you're pretty much screwed. But like I said earlier, the Graf Zeppelin planes aren't great against destroyers, but she has great survivability against destroyers being attacked by a destroyer, assuming that you're not dealing with a Kabaros or a Haragumo. Those guys are just absolute killers with IFHE, but with the health pool and the armor and the number of guns you have on here, your secondaries are the biggest reason why destroyers will get killed by the Graf Zeppelin. I can't tell you how many games I've been where destroyers just want to skip everything, just ignore the battleship, ignore the cap, go to the back of the map and chase the aircraft carrier because that's what they want. Well, the Graf Zeppelin is the last thing you want to be in the destroyer up against, because, you know, it's 9.4 kilometers. I set up my captain to be secondaries, and the reason why is because, well, you can't really do so much with the health pool. You can only, you know, do a little to it, but I thought it would be great because, like I said, the Graf Zeppelin is a very unique aircraft carrier, and it's for this reason that I built her secondary. I do plan on probably getting the sight stabilization due to how crappy the it takes for the sights to stabilize, but there's also a side of me I want to get IFHE. So the secondaries, I feel like they might be better than the Bismarck, which is, yeah, that really does speak out. And the reason why is because of these 150s. I think they have more 150s on the ship than the Bismarck. There's a side of me that says that they're more accurate than the Bismarck for some reason, but I think, if I recall correctly, at one point during her testing phase, War Gaming buffed the accuracy on these secondaries. I might be wrong. Someone might pull up in the archives to prove me wrong, but these are pretty accurate secondaries. The drawback with these secondaries is that in order to get all your secondaries to even fire at a target, you have to show a lot of broadside. That is the downside. If you angle like this much, if you're a ship and you're up against a Graf Zeppelin at this angle, only these front secondaries will start hitting you. If you bow on, the secondary right here and the secondary on the right, the frontal secondaries can fire forward at the same time, but the one behind can't do it. And of course, you only get the 105mm secondaries up in the front. These 105s can't penetrate destroyers at tier 10 or 9, I believe. It can penetrate some tier 8 destroyers, but really it's the 150s that are nasty against cruisers, battleships, and destroyers. Mainly against cruisers and destroyers, or at least destroyers is your biggest reason why you want to get the secondary built on the Graf Zeppelin. Against battleships, they can do a lot of damage against battleships if you get the right build going with IFHE. The only problem is that you're in like a cruiser hull. Not necessarily like a cruiser, but you take a lot of damage and you probably die before you even do any good with the secondaries. But that is the selling point for the Graf Zeppelin for me, the secondaries. It has really bad concealment. I have the concealment upgrade on it. You might want to consider concealment expert, but for me, secondaries and maybe this because of how bad the torpedoes, take to focus. AA wise, not that impressive compared to the other carriers. I mean, let me see, compared to Kaga. I guess it's better than Kaga, Shokaku, 44. 46, okay, better than the Japanese at least, but it's just average. It's not the greatest, but average, because you really don't got that many of the smaller caliber AAs. Most of your AA work will be used or mainly performed by the 105mm secondaries. But aside from that, this is an absolutely beautiful aircraft carrier. Let's take a look at the armor layout really quick. 21mm, yeah, you're not gonna be able to stop those 203mm guns or possibly the 155s. The deck is 25mm, so destroyer guns, they might shatter. I think they do shatter actually. I don't recall, but generally speaking, if you're up against a destroyer, you should have a really high chance of winning against them, assuming that you're not low and not going to take their torpedoes, because you got the armor, the speed, and of course, ultimately, the secondaries. One note that really bothers me, and I think that Wargaming will fix in the near future, hopefully, is one interesting historical significance about the Graf Zeppelin is that she's considered, if I recall correctly, the first aircraft carrier to be equipped with the catapults. Later on, the Americans do it, and of course, all modern carriers to this day, they all have modern catapult system, but I think she's the first, at least the first European nation carrier to have these catapults on it. And the reason why I say it's incomplete is because you don't see the catapult. These are missing. They got removed after the CV rework, because originally you would see the planes launched off here, but now you only see planes launched off forward. The unique factor of having the catapult before the CV rework was that she can launch planes faster than any other carriers. Now, if you're asking me what it looks like I'm gonna pull out my Bismarck here, or some kind of German battleship. Let's look at Bismarck, right? They look like this. Just envision these looking launch catapult system onto the Graf Zeppelin. Aside from that, that is what you expect from the Graf Zeppelin as a ship. The planes, yeah, those are what you're going to be seeing. And the nerf, they nerfed the so before the release, the original Graf Zeppelin, like I said, she was the strongest tier 8 carrier to play. The biggest reason is because her torpedoes did a lot of damage. That is no longer the case. The maximum damage you can do is 4,533. The Americans, I think they do the most damage. Let's get the filter here. Let's see, the Americans. I think originally she did this much damage per torpedoes, and that's a big difference. So it really depends on what target you're going up against. You can use your AP bombs. I like to use the AP bombs because it's just fun using the sirens and dropping bombs on battleships, but you only get 2 bomb drops per flight. And then of course, the torpedo bombs is really the main source of damage against battleship in most cases. So let's take a look at the gameplay and let me show you what the Graf Zeppelin plays like. Alright, it's time to showcase what's it like to play the Graf Zeppelin. So the first thing I like to do is to perform early game reconnaissance for my team. Getting the information of where the radar cruisers are at, what direction are the battleships sailing towards, and of course, what destroyer is going to enter the A or D capture zone can be very crucial for your team in early game. Having a strong early game can really smooth out your experience of winning, but of course, just because you have a strong early game doesn't always guarantee your victory. So you don't need the full squad to scout, only the first two parts of your squad. Because if you get in a situation where flak happens to hit your planes and knock them all down, you're not going to lose 8 planes, you're only going to lose 4. Now I do have a captain skill where on the last part of my squad, they will get their engine boost replenished all the way, right here, you might have noticed. So I'm pressing my engine boost all the way, and after I attack for no reason, my engine boost is filled up, and it looks like I spotted every possible ship that I can see from the right to the middle part of the map. And right here, I automatically press the F key. And this is the reason why the Graf Zeppelin has great survivability on her plane, which makes no sense because I spent a good amount of time explaining why her planes are flimsy. It's because of her speed. Her recall speed is ridiculously fast. And how fast? Well, if I were to do it with the Kaga, the Lexington, press F right in front of the anti-air, there's a good chance that those planes are getting shot down. The Graf Zeppelin, when you press F, the recall button for your planes, they fly so high, so quick that it's almost like the initial F key back in the initial phase of the CV rework where the planes are invulnerable to anti-air the moment you press the F key. This allows her to sustain in the game. So initially when I said that, hey, usually when you think about the ability to sustain with your planes, having enough planes throughout the game is to have the best armor, the best health pool for your planes. Well, in the case of the Graf Zeppelin, she doesn't have that, but she has the speed. And right there, I press the F key again, and let's see. Now, since I pressed the F key so quick, it kind of glitches and shows that my torpedo bombers right there, still there, but they're actually flying back. And you will notice that they suddenly teleported onto my carrier. It's a bug, but it's not a big problem. And yeah, see, my torpedo squadron is doing just fine. If I was in the Lexington, if I was in any other carrier, they would probably get shot down pretty easily. Now, just because I'm able to do this doesn't mean that it will always work. There will be situations where I get unlucky and I lose all my planes, and I think it will happen in this game a few times with my dive bombers. So I'm gonna set up my dive bombers with the nice, cool feature of having the sirens on these planes. And I'm going to go target the Bismarck because German battleships, they are the easiest target to AP bomb with. Since the Graf Zeppelin has a very unique drop zone, it's just a circle. Yeah, should be really easy to hit your targets at the cost of only dropping 2 bombs, of course. Now, although it says that I have two hits and a Citadel, that just means that one of the bombs happened to Citadel the Bismarck. I think that it's a bug. It should only be 1 overpen and just a Citadel, not an extra penetration. And right there again, going to send my bomber up because I know for a fact that they're not going to go for a second round due to the poor maneuverability of planes for a second round. By the time I make that turn, they're going to get shot down. And unfortunately, one of my bombers got shot down. Now the bombers that does the attack and flies up, they fly slower than just pressing the F key. You will notice that when you play the Graf Zeppelin. So I'm going out again with my bombers. Now, in most situations, you don't want to have a full squad. Like I said, you don't want to lose everything. If you have a full squad, it's all or nothing. You just want to lose only partial part of your squad to, you know, just keep it at a minimum in the early parts of the game before you go all out in the later parts of the game where you want to have a full squad to take out the target. Because I'm just going for really quick runs here. Now you want to drop. So it took me a while to get used to the drop zone, the drop circle on the Graf Zeppelin, because where the indicator is targeting right now, when you look at the dive bombers, is where is the part where that's the last second that your bombs will drop. So you want to have to circle a little bit ahead like that and then drop. And right there, I Citadel the Bismarck again on the rear turrets. Kind of feel bad for the Bismarck, but the Graf Zeppelin is a big counter to the Bismarck. I feel like it does a lot more damage than when I use my Enterprise. And part of that reason is because even though the Enterprise has more bombs to drop compared to the Graf Zeppelin's measly 2 bombs per run, the Enterprise, you have to line up from stern to bow, or bow to stern. In the case of the Graf Zeppelin, it's really easy to aim. Just drop it from any direction and cross your fingers that they'll hit your target. And of course, these are big AP bombs. So it looks like the Bismarck has been taken out. This side of the map is heavily fortified, and since I took the opportunity to scout, it looks like not many of my team, they probably noticed that the enemy fleet was on this side, so they decided to go to the left side. But if I didn't scout, there's a good chance that someone, maybe like the Bismarck right there on my team, might have just went to the decap and get focused down by like 8 ships. So here we go again. I'm going to try to target a ship that's not in the center of that big fleet. Going to target the Gneiss now because it's German and I have AP bomb. This one, let's see how this one goes. Not so great. Somehow my bomb ricochet. I think it ricochet off the turret. And right away I send my bomber back because if I continue the flight, they're gonna get shot down by that big, massive fleet. Yeah, I was only able to salvage one of the bombers, it looks like. But like I said, you know, the recall on the Graf Zeppelin is really nice. You can't do this in any other carrier. I'm not sure about the Saipan because Saipan has a very high tier planes. I don't have the Saipan, and I rarely see the Saipan in the game. But from my understanding, the Graf Zeppelin does really nice job when it comes to recalling. Now the fighters, the fighter consumable, I want to let you guys know that the Graf Zeppelin fighters isn't the greatest. You have to really fly into them and get caught by the Graf Zeppelin fighters to get killed by them. But yeah, in most cases they're not that great. So I rarely use my fighters, but if I just happen to fly by, I will use them because why not? It makes my team feel better, but they're not really that effective. So just use them liberally as much as you want. And Nagato, one of the ships are susceptible to AP bombs. Siren goes off, and yeah. That Nagato is not having a great day with the CVs, especially when the Saipan got a broadside on her. So we took out the Nagato. That is our first kill, secured, of course. I was wondering, what's that thing on the left side of the plane? You guys see a little thing that is sticking out? I think that's the most noticeable thing when it comes to playing this plane. Kind of bothers me, but my guess is the sirens. And I think, like I said, I'm not a aviation enthusiast, but I would think that the sirens be on the bottom part of the plane. But I don't know, these planes are really weird looking, especially with the camouflage on them. This is the most unique camouflage you can get on a plane in this game. So right there, I decided that, hey, it's not a good idea to strike the big fleet over there. So let's try to get the Helena. And this is a perfect demonstration of how long it takes for the reticle to converge and how much room you got to work with. So let's make sure not to fly into that big fleet over there. Looks like I'm losing most of my planes and health pool right here. Going to use, well, for a second I thought I was going to use the repair party, but it looks like I can send them back. It's not worth the risk to lose that many planes. You gotta really make those decisions not to go for attack. If you know for a fact that you can secure the ship, then go for it, but the Helena is still healthy. I can always attack her another round. It's not like it's very crucial, like we really needed to kill the Helena to win the game, right? Again, I'm gonna send out my dive bombers. Yeah, I like to use the dive bombers a lot, but there'll be games, it really depends on the game. There's games that I use my torpedo bombers more often because targets like battleships are all over the place and they're wide open. But in this situation, I'm trying to get some decent drops onto the German battleship Bismarck because it looks like Bismarck is going to sail away from the main fleet. Here we go, and right on the dead center. A little bit delay. Unfortunately, I only hit one citadel. right away recall, because if I don't, I'm gonna fly into the Gneisenau, Bismarck, and the Bijoni. I like to say Bijoni for some reason. I think I heard someone say Bijoni before, but if I stayed there too long, I would have got shot down by those 3 ships. So recall right away. Look how fast. Look on the minimap. Look how quick those bombers go. So it's stamina. It's the stamina of this carrier that makes it great to play. So for some reason, there is also a bug with the audio. I'm going to press the map key right away, because sometimes if I press the map key, the audio goes away, which really bothers the crap out of me. Going to line up for a torpedo run on the Bismarck. I have to initiate attack right away, because if I don't do the last second, the vertical won't focus. Boyoni gets knocked out by our friendly Massachusetts. Spot the enemy 2 carriers location. Now I decided to use my repair party because this is a perfect opportunity to go for a second attack. Now lately I've been irritated by the bug with the mouse. So for some reason, okay, if you play carriers, you know that if you're going into attack mode, you can use your mouse to fine-tune your aim. But sometimes, I don't know why, it doesn't work. And then other times, it will work, and there'll be times where I don't move the mouse, but for some reason, it moves itself. I don't know if that's part of the defensive fire consumable to screw up your aim, but I thought defensive fire just makes your reticle larger, or makes it more difficult to actually converge the sights on it. But I don't know what it is, but I hope we're gonna fix that. So right here I dropped my bomb because I feel like there's a good chance that I'm not gonna make it out alive. So let's just salvage those planes and keep it on the deck, since I'm very low on the dive bombers. So I mean, these guys are grouped up, so it only makes sense. So here we go again. We're gonna try to drop on the Bismarck. Drop right here. Press the F key. Let's see. Yep, I do press the F key right away, and look at those planes fly up. Almost. Not quite, but yeah, that was a nasty loss. So like I said, you can't always abuse it. You can't always use it in hopes of getting it working all the time, but in most cases, if you're up against one ship, it shouldn't be that situation. Most likely, your planes are going to survive when you press the F key. So yeah, it's just pacing on like deciding how many planes are you willing to sacrifice. And unfortunately, if you play something like the Kaga, you have to sacrifice almost everything. But this is what I like about the Graf Zeppelin. This is what makes the Graf Zeppelin strong as a tier 8 carrier, because it's able to maintain the air support, maintain the scouting, and of course, ultimately, be consistent with your attacks and not having, you know, no planes at the end of the game, because you're still able to attack since you can recall without worrying too much. But of course, don't want to push that luck too much. So let's try to finish off the Kutuzov, or the Kutuzov. Kutuzov's gonna turn in. I'm going to drop right away. Having 3 torpedoes is very nice because at least one of them will hit the Kutuzov. I find myself in many situations where I might have to attack my with my torpedo bombers, bow onto ships. But if it's a balance ship, usually at least one torpedo hit, because the middle one, or if the ship decides to maneuver away from the middle one, then the right or left one will hit the target. But then again, like I said, the torpedo bomber damage was nerfed, so they don't do that much damage. Now the middle torpedo is usually late to the party because of that middle plane being behind compared to the 2 planes on, well, the one on the left and the right, and the one on the right, they're more ahead of the middle plane. So right here, I'm going to strike the Bismarck, not the Gneisenau, because the Bismarck won't expect me to strike her. Since the Bismarck is low, let's see if we can take out a ship as soon as possible. I mean, the game is fairly close because, well, the number of ships we have, but we have the early game advantage, like I said, the reconnaissance. And we do manage to flood the Bismarck right there, but Bismarck will use her damage control. So I am at it again with the torpedo bombers. Let's see what we can do. Looks like I'm spotted by the Helena. The Graf Zeppelin, like I said, has really bad concealment, so it's pretty easy to get spotted. Now right here, normally, if I was in any other carrier, I'd probably turn around and try to flee from the Helena. But when you pay the price of $61 for a ship that's unique in the secondary department, I will take every opportunity to go guns blazing against a ship that I can fight against. Of course, if it was like a full HP Bismarck, then maybe not. But right here, I decided that, hey, why not? Let's have some fun with the Graf Zeppelin. With full confidence, of course, because I don't want to throw the game away. And it's almost to a point where we could throw the game, but hey, there's plenty of people out there who do dumb stuff, and this is the one time where I wanted to show off with my Graf Zeppelin. So you might notice, like I said, you can't get your secondaries to work unless you show broadside. And right here I decided to show broadside because the Helena is firing HE, and she's almost dead. So this will give you an idea what kind of angles you need in order to get those secondaries in the back and the ones behind the superstructure. Right here, this angle. And unfortunately, the Helena loads AP and I take a ton of damage, but it was so worth because I took out the Helena with a close quarters. Yeah, that felt really good. That really did make my day. So the game is winding down. We have the advantage, clearly, because we have a better start since we have 3 flags now. Enemy Gunite now. It's way out in the distance. Now, the Enterprise is going to strike the Scharnhorst and the Nelson, but it looks like the game is about to end, so I decided that it's not worth to drop a fighter. Like I said, the fighters aren't great on the Graf Zeppelin. That's my experience with them. Sometimes they work, sometimes they just don't work. And let's see if we can do a surprise attack. It looks like I'm right on the edge of the arming distance. And unfortunately, the one on the left and the right, the one on the right for each attack, right? The one in the middle is always behind. The middle one, since it's behind, it was able to arm, while the one on the left and the right was not able to arm. So we still did get 1 torpedo, which is great. I don't know how many of you guys remember the original Graf Zeppelin before the CV rework, where her drop pattern would be the Iron Cross, which is always cool. It's a really cool symbol to let everyone know that you're up against a German torpedo bomber, right? You gotta drop that Iron Cross. So, yep, the game is going to end like this way. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time on World of Warships.